Hey guys, I'm back. Took a few weeks off just because I was busy. But today we have a very special video. We're going to be doing a full ECT math test with Nick. Nick is a National Merit Scholar and he is much smarter than me. We're going to be going through 60 problems today, so buckle up, sit tight, buckle your seatbelts, and jokes aside, we're going to be going through these problems, showing you the strategies and techniques that we recommend you use for the most repetitive ACT math problems that you will see on test day. I recommend you take the test before you watch the video because you can use the video to review the answers that you didn't get right. So there is a PDF linked below on our website. You have to make a free account, but you'll get access to actually more than just one PDF. You'll get access to a few PDFs for ACT math and also full practice exams. Take the exam on your own, grade it, and then use this video to review the problems that you didn't get. Now, if you're too lazy to do all that, you can just watch the rest of the video. If anything, by doing that, you'll help our YouTube algorithm rankings. I hope you like this video, and if you like it, just don't do anything. All right, that's it for me. Enjoy Nick doing 60 problems.
All right, so let's start off by looking at number 1. We have an equation right here. 5 to the x minus 5 equals 125. So let's write that out. Okay, now this looks like a pretty nasty equation until you realize that we can apply a pretty nifty property of exponents to make this much simpler. Remember, when an exponent is subtracted from another exponent, it's the same thing as dividing. So, what we can do now is we can multiply both sides of this equation by 5 to the 5. So let's do that. Okay, now we could type this into a calculator, or you could remember that 125 is the same thing as 5 cubed, or 5 to the 3. Now we can apply one more property of exponents, where we can add these exponents together to get our answer. Because remember, when you're multiplying by two numbers with the same base and different exponents, you can add the exponents together. Therefore, x equals 8. So for 1, C is our answer. Moving on to number 2. When x equals 5, what is the value of 2x minus 2 divided by 8? All we have to do for this one is plug x into our equation right here. So let's do that. Now you could do this in your calculator, and I would suggest always using your calculator when you can because it eliminates stupid mistakes, but we can just get some practice with our arithmetic right here. So we have 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 divided by 8 equals 1. C is our answer once again. All right, looking at number 3, we have some nested absolute value symbols. Now, the important thing to remember about absolute values is that they make things positive. So let's look at what we've got here. We have the absolute value of negative 5 plus 10 minus the absolute value of 2 minus 7, all in a giant absolute value. So let's evaluate each of these smaller expressions first. So negative 5 plus 10 is negative 5. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. Now, 2 minus 7 is also negative 5, but the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So therefore we have 5 minus 5. Taking the absolute value of 5 minus 5, we get 0. Since the absolute value of 0 is 0, therefore the answer to 3 is C. Moving on to number 4, we have some classic slope problems. We have 2 points, negative 4, 2, and 5, negative 2 in the xy coordinate plane. For this, we have to remember the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 formula. So let's assign this first one to be x1 and y1, and this second one to be x2 and y2. So let's set up our formula over here to the left. Okay, so we have negative 2 minus 2 divided by 5 minus negative 4. Notice that these negatives cancel out, so this is just going to be the same thing as 5 plus 4. So we're going to have negative 4 divided by 9. Negative 4 ninths. Therefore, A is the correct answer. Moving on to 5. 12% of 75 is 1/7 of what number? Okay, we can break out our calculators for this one. because we can quickly evaluate 12% of 75 by multiplying 0.12 times 75. So let's write that out really quick so we know what we're doing. Typing this into the calculator, we get 9. Now we have 9, because 12% of 75 is 9, we just figured that out. 9 is 1/7 of what number? So we can set up a nifty little equation to figure this out. And we can easily solve this equation by multiplying both sides of it by 7. Since 9 times 7 is 63, x equals 63. Alright, moving on to number 6, we have a geometry problem. And since we don't have a diagram here, I will probably be drawing a diagram for it. So, the width of a rectangle is 8 inches longer than the length. So let's draw a rectangle here. Since the width is longer than the length, we'll call this the width right here. We'll call that the width, and we'll call the other side the length. So, the width of a rectangle is 8 inches longer than the length. So we'll call length L. Call width 8 plus L. We are also given the perimeter, which is 32 inches, and we have to find the width. Okay, we know the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle is 2L plus 2W equals P. In this case, P is 32. And we also know that W is 8 plus L, so we can rewrite this equation. Okay, now we have 2L plus, distributing this 2, plus 16 plus 2L equals 32. Combining like terms, we get 4L equals 16, because we can subtract 16 from both sides. Therefore, the length equals 4. However, don't be fooled. Remember, we are looking for the width. This is not our answer. We know that the width is 8 inches longer than the length, so the width has to be 12. And we see right here, 12D is our answer. Alright, moving on to number 7, it looks like we have a probability problem. Janet's coin purse has 7 quarters, 8 dimes, and 11 nickels. A magic trick is going to be done. What is the probability that the coin Janet takes out of her purse will be a dime? Okay, remember that the probability of an event equals the number of successes divided by the number of possibilities. To find the number of possibilities in this case, we have to add up all of these numbers to figure out the number of coins. This is equal to 26. So we know that the denominator of our probability is going to be 26. The numerator is just going to be the number of successes, which is the number of dimes, 8. So 8 over 26 is the answer. However, that is not there. Am I lying to you? No. We have to simplify this answer. We can simplify this by dividing by 2, and we get 4 over 13. Is 4 over 13 an answer? Yes. Our answer is B. Okay, for number 8, what is the sum of the solutions of the two equations below? So, first equation, here's what we can do. Coming over to this side, we have 2x plus 10 equals 4. What we can do is we can subtract 10 from both sides, and we get 2x equals negative 6. Now we can divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals negative 3. Therefore, the solution to the first equation is negative 3. Now looking at the second equation, all we have to do is divide both sides by 5, and we get y equals 3. Since we are asked for the sum, we're going to add these two numbers together. 3 plus negative 3 equals 0. C is our answer. Moving on to number 9. A chef's secret pancake recipe requires 2.5 cups of milk, 2 eggs, 1 cup of flour, and makes 10 pancakes. The chef only has 5 cups of milk, an infinite supply of all other ingredients. How many pancakes can he make? I think the chef could make more money by selling the other ingredients if he has an infinite supply. However, let's work with the problem here to see what he can actually do with the pancakes. The chef only has 5 cups of milk. Looking at his recipe, a chef's secret pancake requires 2.5 cups of milk. That is double the amount of milk to make 10 pancakes. Therefore, 5 cups of milk can make 20 pancakes. Since he has all the other ingredients in extraneous supply, we're going to make double the amount of pancakes, which is going to be 20. D is our answer. Okay, looking at number 10. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to x to the 4 over 3? With fractional exponents, you have to remember that 4 goes on top. So that's raising it to the 4th power. And the one on the bottom goes in that little square root area right there. So this is like having the cube root. So this is going to be the cube root of x to the 4th. Looking at our answer choices, C looks like it is the cube root of x to the 4th. On to number 11. Timothy is putting a fence around his rectangular yard. He uses 180 feet of fence to completely fence his yard. The width of the yard is twice the length. What is the proportion of the area to the perimeter of his yard? All right, let's draw a diagram here. So we see that the width of the yard is twice the length. So we'll call width 2L. And length will be L. Similar to our last problem that we did like this. He's going to use 180 feet of fence to completely fence his yard. That means that our perimeter is going to be 180. So we can write that equation now too. Okay. What is the proportion of the area to the perimeter of his yard? And the area is going to be length times width. Alright, so we're looking for the proportion of area to perimeter. So let us calculate the perimeter first. We can plug the width into our equation because we know that W equals 2L. So we're going to have 2L plus 4L equals 180. Adding like terms, we get 6L equals 180. Therefore, L equals 30. Furthermore, W equals 60 since it's double the length. Now we can use this to calculate the area. 30 times 60 gives us 1800. Therefore, we know that the area equals 1800. Now to find the proportion of area to perimeter, we have to divide area by perimeter. Without even using our calculators, we can tell that 1800 is greater than 180 by a factor of 10 because it has one more zero. Therefore, the proportion is going to be 10, D. Alright, moving on to number 12, we have a cake problem. Mikey purchases a cake for his birthday. He eats 7/20ths of the cake. He freezes 1/3 of the remaining cake and gives the rest to his sister. What percent of the cake does Mikey's sister receive? Now, the first thing I'm going to want to do is I want to give these fractions the same denominator. I'm going to get them to a common denominator, and you're going to see why in a second. So I know that we can do that by multiplying 7/20ths, the denominator, by 3, and 1/3, the denominator, by 20. We can both get them to a common denominator of 60. So let's do that. Okay, now I can add these together to figure out the fraction of the cake that was either frozen or eaten. Now, what I can do is I can subtract this number from 1 to figure out the fraction of the cake that Mikey's sister received. So, Mikey's sister receives 19/60ths of a cake. We can convert this to a percent by dividing. We can do 19 divided by 60. And we get about 31.666%. We round this, because we can see each of these answers has two significant figures, we can round this to 32%. Therefore, D is our answer. Moving on to 13. In the standard coordinate plane, what is the midpoint of the line segment that has endpoints 1, 4 and -3, 6? Now, what we can do to find the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate of each, of the midpoint, we can take the average of the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate of each of these points. So let's do that. All right, 6 plus 4 divided by 2 is 5, because 10 divided by 2 is 5. The y-coordinate of our midpoint is going to be 5. We can cross out every answer except A and C. Now let's search for the x-coordinate. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Therefore, our coordinate is negative 1, 5. Looking at our answers, that is A. Moving on to 14. Car Model Z can drive 170 miles in 2 hours. Car Model A can drive 200 miles in 2.5 hours. What is the difference in speed in miles per hour between Car Model Z and Car Model A? Now, the secret to this problem is looking at that unit, miles per hour. That per right there means divide, so we can figure out the speed by dividing the number of miles by the time it took in hours. So for Z, we can figure out the speed by dividing 170 by 2. Typing this into our calculators, we get the answer of 85. That's 85 miles per hour. Don't forget your units. Now, for A, we can do the same thing. 200 divided by 2.5 hours. Typing this into our calculators, we get 80. Subtracting these answers, we get a difference of 5, because remember, difference means subtract. So 85 minus 80 is 5 miles per hour. B is our correct answer. Moving on to 15. King's Wholesale Club charges a $60 yearly fee and offers a 10% discount on all items sold. Spiffy Wholesale Club charges a $75 yearly fee and offers a 15% discount on all items. You consume $1,000 worth of grocery items a year. What is the cost difference between buying groceries at King's Wholesale versus Spiffy Wholesale? Okay, so at King's Wholesale, you get a $60 yearly fee plus a 10% discount on all items. Since you consume $1,000 worth of grocery items a year, you know that you are going to get a 10% discount. 10% of 1,000 is 100, so 1,000 minus 100 equals $900. So the total cost is going to be $60 plus $900, which is $960. Now, looking at Spiffy Wholesale Club, you have a $75 yearly fee. But they have a 15% discount. 15% of 1,000 is 150. 1,000 minus 150 is 850. 75 plus 850 is 925. The cost difference, again subtracting here, is 960 minus 925, which is going to be 35A. Moving on to 16. The figure below is composed of square BCDE and equilateral triangle ABE. The length of DE is 10. What is the perimeter of triangle ABE in inches? Okay, so looking at this diagram, we see that equilateral triangle is put on top of the square here. Now we know one thing about both equilateral triangles and squares, and that is all of the sides have equal length. Since side DE is 10 inches, side EB is going to be 10 inches. Therefore, side EB on the equilateral triangle is also going to be 10 inches. That also means that side AE and side AB are going to be 10 inches. Adding 10 plus 10 plus 10 gives us 30. Therefore, the perimeter of this triangle is 30. Moving on to 17. The expression 3t plus 6 times t minus 5 is equivalent to. Okay, for this we have to FOIL. Let's set it up on the left-hand side. By the way, I hate using t as a variable because I always confuse it with a plus sign. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is our first. 3t times t is 3t squared. 3t times negative 5 is negative 15t. 6 times t is 6t. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. See what I mean about t starting to look like pluses with my handwriting? Now, combining like terms, we can combine this negative 15 and this positive 6 to get negative 9t. Let's look for this in our answers. We got 3t squared minus 9t minus 30 is right here. Answer choice is C. Okay, what is the smallest integer greater than the square root of 63? So, the first thing I would do is, since we can use our calculator here, we can find the square root of 63. So, find the square root, we get 7.937. So the smallest integer greater than the square root of 63 is going to be 8, since the square root of 63 is about 7.9. You could also figure this out by approximation, by squaring each of these and seeing that 8 squared is 64, which is just slightly greater than 63. But my way with the calculator is a bit quicker and more foolproof. All right, looking at number 19, we have a mileage problem. Vehicle A averages 22 miles per gallon. Vehicle B averages 12 miles per gallon. At these rates, how many more gallons of gasoline does B need than A to make a 792-mile trip? All right, we can write these ratios out to solve for the number of gallons. Look at the left-hand side here. For vehicle A, we know that 1 gallon gives us 22 miles. Our trip is 792 miles long. We can therefore divide 792 by 22 to figure out the number of gallons, because as you can see here, the miles cancel out. So 792 divided by 22 is exactly 36 gallons. All right, looking at B now, same process. I won't write all the work out because I just did it, but what we can do is we can do the same thing again and divide 792 by 12 this time. 792 divided by 12 gives us 66 gallons. 66 minus 36 is 30 gallons more. Therefore, our answer is E. All right, looking at number 20. In the standard coordinate plane, point M has coordinates negative 7, 5 and is the midpoint of AB. B has coordinates negative 5, 3. We got to find A. All right, so looking at this, since B comes second in our line segment notation here, we know that B is going to be to the right of A, so its x-coordinate is going to be greater. Since the midpoint is equidistant from both A and B, we can figure out the difference between the midpoint and point B to figure out point A. So the difference between midpoint M and point B is 2. We add 2 to M to get B. Therefore, we can subtract 2 from M to get the x-coordinate of A. Negative 7 minus 2 is negative 9. Only one of these answer choices has negative 9 as the x-coordinate, so we know that A is our answer. Moving on to 21. Magellan cut a rope 42 feet long into 2 pieces. The ratio of the lengths of the 2 pieces is 2 to 5. What is the length of the nearest foot of the shorter piece? So I'm going to write out 2 equations to solve this. Okay, so we can figure out the length of the shorter piece from these 2 equations. Got 2 variables, 2 equations, it works out. So what we can do is we can solve for L in terms of S. Now we can plug this into our second equation to solve for S. Notice that I rewrote S as 2s over 2. This is the same thing as S, however, it lets me combine these 2 fractions into 7s over 2. Now I can multiply 42 by 2 over 7. And get an answer of 12. Moving on to 22. What values of x are solutions for x to the 4th minus 63 equals 18? Okay, so the way I would tackle this is we can look at this and we can actually factor. So we have x to the 4th minus 63 equals 18. Let's set this equal to 0 and see what happens. Now look at this. X to the 4th and 81 are both 2 squares. This is a difference of 2 squares. We know how to express this. As you can see, the value that makes this equation negative, the values are 3 and negative 3. So we look for our 3 and negative 3 in our answers, and we have C, 3 and negative 3 is our answer for 22. Looking at 23. Fixed costs of producing jump ropes in a manufacturing plant are $800 per day. Variable costs are $12.50 per jump rope. Which of the following expressions can be used to model the maximum costs of producing J jump ropes in 5 days? All right, so the fixed costs. This isn't going to change, so 800 should be by itself in our equation. Looking at our equations here, we do have this B has 800 by itself, C has 800 by itself, and it looks like nobody else has 800 by itself. Now, variable costs. This changes, and it depends on the number of jump ropes. So we should multiply $12.50 times J, the number of jump ropes. So, figuring out the maximum cost over 5 days, we're going to have to multiply 800 by 5, which is going to be 4,000. Now, I did misspeak earlier when I said that B and C would be possible answers because I forgot that it said 5 days. However, since it's 5 days, it's going to be a fixed cost of $4,000 in total. So we look at D here. D has 4,000 by itself, and it has 12.5 times J, which shows our variable cost, because remember, we got the variable next to the variable cost. Therefore, 23's answer is D. 24. For the triangle ABC below, what is the sine A? Now remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. You can remember that by some old horse caught another horse taking oats away, or so katoa, as you may have heard it. Now, looking at A, we need to find the opposite, and we need to find the hypotenuse. Now, the hypotenuse is easy. It's the longest side. The hypotenuse is 10. However, it looks like our opposite is missing, so we're going to have to do the Pythagorean Theorem. All right, 6 squared plus b squared equals 10 squared. We're calling this missing side b. So we've got 36 plus b squared equals 100. Subtracting 36 from both sides, we get b squared equals 64. Therefore, b equals also could have figured that out by knowing that this is a Pythagorean triple. It's a multiple of the 3, 4, 5 primitive Pythagorean triple. You can get this by multiplying 3, 4, and 5 by 2. But if you don't have the Pythagorean triples memorized, that's perfectly okay. You can just use the Pythagorean theorem to figure them out. Now we can solve for the sine of a, because we have the opposite and the hypotenuse. Sine of a is going to be 8 over 10. Simplifying it, we get 4 over 5a. Okay, number 25. We've got an inequality here, and we've got to simplify it. We've got 5x plus 1 is greater than 3x minus 5. So what we can do here is we can subtract 3x from both sides. So let's do that. All right. Now this still isn't one of our answer choices, so what we can do to simplify further is subtract 1 from both sides. 2x is greater than 6 is one of our answer choices. It is answer choice B. So now we can move on to 26. 26. If h equals 11, k equals 2, and p equals negative 8, what does this expression equal? So let's plug those numbers in. All right, so let's solve each of the expressions inside of these parentheses. 11 minus 2 is 9. 9 minus 8 is 1. Looking at these parentheses, 11 minus 8 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3, so C is our answer. Moving on to 27. A function f of x is defined as f of x equals negative 4x cubed. What is f of negative 4? All right, so we can plug negative 4 into this expression here. It's essentially the same as number 26, except we're using fancier notation here. So we can do this. You could type this into your calculator, but I will tell you that negative 4 cubed is negative 64. And negative 4 times negative 64 is 256. So 27 is E. Moving on to 28. A rectangle has an area of 36 square feet and a perimeter of 24 feet. What is the longest of the side lengths in feet of the rectangle? So we're going to write out both the formulas for area and perimeter here. Okay, so we have two equations and two variables. So that means we should solve for one variable in terms of the other. So let's use the perimeter formula to do that. All right, L equals 12 minus W. So let's plug that into our area formula. Distributing that W, we have, and this is a quadratic equation. So let's go to a new page to write this out. 12W minus W squared equals 36. So we can solve for 0 here. So let's do 0 equals W squared minus 12W plus 36. All right, so let's solve this quadratic. Let's try to factor here. we can see that this is actually a perfect square because w minus 6 times w minus 6 gives us this equation right here. So we actually know that our answer is 6. The width equals 6. Now we can plug that back into the area formula to find the length. We know that the length is also 6. Therefore, both sides are the same length, and this rectangle is actually a square. So our answer is E6. That last part about the rectangle being a square actually doesn't matter in the context of the problem, but it's interesting to know. Okay, in triangle ABC, the measure of angle A is 18 degrees and angle B is 15 degrees greater than angle A. What is the measure of angle C? Okay, so since angle B is 15 degrees greater than angle A, we know that angle B is 33. 33 degrees, of course, and angle A is 18 degrees. So if we add these together, we get the sum of 51. The sum of A and B is 51 degrees. We know that there are 180 degrees in every triangle, so we can solve for angle C by solving this expression. So plugging this into our calculators, we get 180 minus 51 gives us 129 degrees. That is our answer D right here. Okay, looking at 30, we have another rectangle problem. The width of a rectangle is 5 times the width of a smaller rectangle. The two rectangles have the same length. The area of the large rectangle is b square units. The area of the smaller rectangle is pb square units. And we're looking for b. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a diagram. We're going to call this guy length w, and this guy length 5w. And they're both going to have length L. This is going to have an area of PB, so let's write that expression out. This is going to have an area of B. So now we have to solve for P. Let's divide both sides of this equation by 5 to see what we get. LW equals B over 5. Here we have LW equals PB. Therefore, we know P equals 1/5, since this 5 has to be divided by 5 in order for these two to be equal. Therefore, our answer is B, 1/5. Moving on to 31. We've got two expressions here, one expression composed of two sets of parentheses, and we have to simplify it. Now, the only thing to be careful here is distributing that negative. You have to make sure that each of the terms inside these parentheses have their signs flipped. So let's do that really quick. All right, so now all we have to do is combine like terms. Notice that the signs of each of the terms in here are flipped. So 3a plus negative 4a is negative a. 1b plus 6b is 7b. Finally, negative 2c minus 3c is negative 5c. Looking at our answers, it looks like negative a plus 7b minus 5c, b is our answer. All right, 32. We have a rectangular prism problem. We've got to find the surface area of it. Now, you don't need to have a fancy formula memorized. All you have to do is realize that the rectangular prism is composed of simple 2D shapes. So, looking at these simple 2D shapes, we've got a rectangle right in front of us that has a width of 8 and a length of 20. There are two of these rectangles, one right here in front of us and one right behind us, all the way in the back that you can't really see right now. So, we do 8 times 20. Is 160. We multiply that by 2 since there are two of those rectangles. And we get an answer of 320. Now, for those rectangles on top, right here. They have a width of 6, as you can see here, and a length of 20, which means they have an area of 120. Again, there are two of them, one on the top and one on the bottom, so we get 120 times 2 equals 240. Finally, these end caps right here, these tiny little rectangles that have a width of 6 and a length of 8 and an area of 48. Again, there are two of them, so we multiply by 2, and we get 96. Adding these all together in your calculator, you get 656. All right, moving on to 33. Bag contains 8 blue marbles, 10 purple, and 17 green. How many green have to be added to the 35 so that the probability of randomly drawing a green is 5 to 8? Okay, remember that a probability is the number of successes divided by the number of total outcomes. So right now we've got 17 green marbles divided by 35 marbles. And we want to figure out how many green marbles we have to add to get a probability of 5/8. We'll call the number of green marbles to be added x. Now notice we also have to add x to the bottom. This is because if you're adding green marbles, you're certainly adding marbles to the total number of marbles, which is why you have plus x for the number of green marbles and plus x for the total number of marbles. Now all we have to do is cross multiply here. So we get 8 times 17 is 136, plus 8x equals 5 times 35, which is 175, plus 5x. All right, subtracting 5x from both sides of the equation, we get 3x. And subtracting 136 from both sides of the equation, we get 175 minus 136 is 39. Therefore, x equals 13. And 13 is our answer. All right, moving on to 34. The graph of y equals 3x squared minus 2 passes through 4, 1/2 w, in the standard xy coordinate plane. What is the value of w? Okay, so this 4 is an x value, so we can plug that into x in this formula right here, or this equation. Now, what does this equal? Well, notice that y actually equals 1/2 w. So we can set this equal to 1/2 w. So we have 3 times 16 minus 2 equals 1/2 w. Hey, that kind of rhymed. All right, 3 times 16 is 48. 48 minus 2 is 46. Multiplying both sides of the equation by 2, we get 92 equals w. 92 is our answer. Our answer is E. Moving on to 35. The dimensions of the right triangle shown below are given in feet. What is the tangent of theta? Now remember what I said about the some old horse cut another horse taking oats away. What we're concerned about here is the TOA part, taking oats away. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. That's what that means. We've got our theta right here, our angle. So the opposite is going to be y, and the adjacent is going to be z. Therefore, the tangent of theta is y divided by z. Our answer is A. Okay, for 36, discount tickets to a movie sell for $9.25 each. Helena spent $46.25 on discount tickets, $31.25 less than if he had bought the tickets at the regular price. What was the regular ticket price? All right, so the first thing we should do is figure out how many tickets Helena bought, and we can do that by dividing. So we're going to do 46.25 divided by 9.25 to figure out the total number of tickets bought. And this should be a nice whole number, which it is. It's 5 tickets bought. Okay, now, we know that he spent $31.25 less, so he would have spent $77.50 if he bought regular tickets. Since he bought 5 tickets, we can divide $77.50 by 5 to figure out the regular ticket price. This comes out to $15.50, so C is our answer. Moving on to 37. A team of basketball players have heights 72, 77, yada, yada, yada. What is the mode of the basketball players' heights? So, this is a measure of central tendency problem, and the measures of central tendency are mean, median, and mode. What we have to worry about here is the mode. Don't get that confused with the mean or median. You can remember what the mode is because mode sounds like most often. It's the number that appears most often. Looking at these numbers, 72 appears twice. Therefore, 72 is the mode. Okay, 38. Pete, Andre, and Rodney shared a large popcorn at the movie theater. Pete ate a fifth, Andre ate half, and Rodney ate the rest. What is the ratio of Pete to Andre to Rodney? All right, so for these types of problems, I like to assign a random amount of popcorn. So a nice whole number like 100. Let's say there were 100 pieces of popcorn. Therefore, Pete ate a fifth of that. A fifth of 100 is 20. Andre ate half. Half of 100 is 50. Adding these together, that's 70 pieces eaten in total. We can solve for Rodney because he ate the rest. Since Pete and Andre ate 70, we know that Rodney ate 30. And you can see that these add up to 100. So we can figure out the ratio of Pete to Andre to Rodney by doing 20 to 50 to 30. 20 to 50 to 30. Now notice that the zeros actually cancel out because we can divide by 10. Therefore, the ratio is 2 to 5 to 3. And our answer is C. Hey, that rhymed. Okay, 39. We got an isosceles triangle here. We know that the base of triangle ABC is 1/3 the length of AC. If AB is 48 centimeters long, what is the length of CB? Well, remember, this is an isosceles triangle, so AB is equal in length to AC. Therefore, since AB is 48, AC is also 48. So CB is going to be 1/3 of 48 centimeters, which is going to be 16 centimeters. And A is our answer for 39. Moving on to 40. A certain circle in the standard xy coordinate plane has this equation. What's the radius? What are the coordinates? All right. So for this one, you kind of have to have the formula for the conics memorized. Now, here is the circle equation. You might sometimes see this written as x minus h squared and y minus k squared, but it's pretty much the same thing, same information being conveyed here. So looking at this, we know that the radius is squared, so we have to find the square root of the number at the end, at the right hand of the equal side, to figure out the radius. The square root of 49 is 7. So we know that the answer is either A or D. Now notice that we are subtracting the coordinates of the center from x and y. So we're going to have to flip the signs of the numbers here to figure out the coordinates of the center. So the coordinates are going to be -3 and +4. Therefore, D is our answer. Got the radius of 7 and the center of -3, 4. Okay, 41. What is the least common multiple of the three numbers 35, 21, and 72? Now, for this, we can actually use the answers to our advantage. Since we know one of these answers has to be the least common multiple, we can divide each of these by the numbers here to see what is divisible. Because remember, the least common multiple is going to have to be the smallest number that is divisible by these three numbers. And remember, if one number is divisible by another number, when you divide those numbers, you should get a whole number. Now let's see this in action. So 128 divided by 72, we get 1.7777, goes on forever. Therefore, 128 is not divisible by 72, so it can't be the least common multiple. Let's try 252. 252 divided by 72 is about 3.5. Therefore, 252 is not divisible by 72. 1,280 divided by 72 is about 17.8. Also not a whole number. Let's move on. 2,520 divided by 72 is 35. 35 is a whole number, therefore 2,520 is divisible by 72. But let's see if the other numbers are factors. So 2,520 divided by 21 is also a whole number, it's 120. And 2,520 divided by 35 is 72, another whole number. Therefore, 2,520 is the least common multiple of these three numbers. D is our answer. All right, moving on. We've got a few problems that are working on this one-word problem right here. So, Jerry grows and sells bonsai trees in two shapes, spherical and gnome-shaped. It takes him 2 months to grow a spherical bonsai, 5 months to grow a gnome one. Jerry can grow multiple bonsai at once. The shaded triangular region below is the graph of a system of inequalities representing annual constraints Jerry has in growing bonsai. For making and selling S spherical bonsai and G gnome-shaped bonsai, Jerry makes a profit of this. Jerry sells all the bonsai he grows. The constraint represented by the horizontal line segment, 5, 1, means that Jerry grows at least, so let's see, number of gnome-shaped bonsai. So this looks like he grows at least one gnome-shaped bonsai annually, since everything has to be above that line, and that line looks like y equals 1. So A is the answer for 42. Okay, looking at number 43. Seasons are 3 months long. For each month of the summer, Jerry donates $350. This year, Jerry sold 3 gnomes and 6 spheres. Which of the following is closest to the percent of average monthly profit Jerry donated? All right, so the first thing we're going to have to do is figure out how much profit he made, and we can do that using this formula. So all we have to do is plug in our numbers into this formula. So, taking up our calculators, we get 525 times 6 spherical bonsai sold, plus 950 times 3 gnome-shaped bonsais, and we get a total of 6,000. That's $6,000 of profit. However, they're asking for average monthly profit. Since this is over the course of 3 months, we divide by 3. And we get 2,000. Now, we're not done yet. They asked what percent of monthly profit he donated. We have to divide 350 by 2,000 to get this number. This equals about 0.175. When converted to a percent, this is 17.5%. Moving on to 44. What is the maximum profit Jerry can earn from the bonsai trees he grows in 1 year? Okay, so to evaluate this problem, we have to look at this graph right here. So the maximum profit is going to be either when he maximizes the number of spheres that he grew or the number of gnomes that he grew. So we have to look at the endpoints of this graph to figure it out. So looking at this left endpoint, we're going to have 3 gnomes sold and 0 spheres made, 0 spheres grown. So we would have 525 times 0 plus 950 times 3. That comes out to $2,850 of profit. Looking at this other endpoint here, we have 5 spheres and 1 gnome. Plugging this into our calculator, we get 525 times 5 plus 950 times 1, and we get 3,575. As you can see, 3,575 is greater than 2,850, so B is our answer. Okay, looking at 45, Jerry has 4 of each bonsai shape grown. He can trade 3 spherical bonsai for 2 gnome bonsai. Jerry wants the most valuable bonsai collection, don't we all? How many gnome-shaped bonsai will he have after going to the market? Okay, now there are a couple things that could happen here. Since he has 4 of each bonsai shape, he could either not trade anything at all and keep 4 and 4. So let's make a chart here. This is going to be our chart of possibilities. He could have 4 and 4. He could trade the 3 spherical bonsai and get 2 gnome bonsai back, which would leave him with 1 spherical and 6 gnomes. He could trade 2 gnomes for 3 spherical. Or he could do that again and have 0 gnomes and 10 spherical. So now all we have to do is plug each of these into our calculators to see which of them is the most profitable. So 525 times 4 plus 950 times 4, we get 5,900. Going to the next one, we have 525 times 1 plus 950 times 6, and we get 6,225. Going to the next one, we have 525 times 7 plus 950 times 2. We get 5,575, which is less than this one, so I won't even write it down. And going to the last one, we got 10 spherical. We're going to get 5,250, which is also less than this number right here. Therefore, we're going to have 6 gnome bonsai. Moving on to 46. A formula for finding the value x of dollars of p dollars invested at an I% interest compounded annually for t years is x equals this. Which of the following is an expression for p in terms of I, t, and x? So, forgetting all of this complicated jargon that is trying to throw you off, all we have to do is solve for p. Get p by itself on the equal sign, just like x is. So what we can do is we can divide both sides of this by 1 plus I to the t. Okay, now we look at our answer choices and see if any of the answers match this, and it looks like E does match this, so E is our answer. What is the sum of the first 3 terms of the geometric sequence in which the 4th term is 24 and the 8th term is 384? Okay, so remember, a geometric sequence is a sequence where we are multiplying. So, 24 times something times something times something times something is 384. So let's write this out here. So this is the 4th term, and this is the 8th term. We have the 5th, 6th, 7th. So we are multiplying by the same factor each time. So let's call this A. So here we are multiplying by A1. We're multiplying by A another, and A1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 A's. Therefore, 24 times A to the 4th is 384. So all we have to do is divide 384 by 24, and we get 16. So A to the 4th equals 16. Now we have to take the 4th root of 16, and we get 2. Therefore, our common factor is 2. Okay, now we're looking for the sum of the first 3 terms. Now to find the first 3 terms, we have to divide 24 by 2. So let's do that. Since 24 is the 4th term, we have to divide it by 2 to get the previous 3 terms. So 24 divided by 2 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Adding these together, we get 3 plus 6 plus 12 is 21. 21 is our answer.
ACD is an isosceles triangle similar to ABE. Okay, so ACD, ABE, they're similar. AB is half the length of AD. Which of the following is the ratio of the area of ACD to the area of quadrilateral EBCD? Okay, so first thing it says, this is half the distance of this, which means it's also half the distance of this, okay? So this length here and this length here are the same, all right? Now, that also means that when we compare the bases here, the base of this, if this is x, then this is going to be 2x, because these are, the ratio between the small triangle and the large one is that of double, okay? So the side lengths of the larger triangle are going to be twice as long as the side lengths of the smaller one, all right? Now, what this also means is I can divide this bottom shape into 2, okay? And these lengths, these red dimensions, are all the same. If I make these into triangles here, what I notice is I get 4 triangles, and they're actually going to be the same area. These are all the same triangle in terms of dimension. So when I compare the total area of this large triangle with the area of this shape right here, the large triangle is going to be 4 triangles in area, 4 small triangles in area, and the small quadrilateral is going to be 3 triangles in area. So the ratio is going to actually be 4 to 3. So your answer for 48 is D.
All right, moving on to problem 49. For what value of A would the following system of equations have an infinite number of solutions? Now, remember, a system of equations has an infinite number of solutions when the two equations are the same equation. So let's put them into y equals mx plus b form to make this a little bit easier, because remember, they're going to be the same equation when they have the same slope and the same y-intercept. All right, so we have y equals negative 3x plus 10 and 4y equals 5a minus 12x. For this second equation here, we're going to have to divide both sides by 4. As you can see, we already have the same slope of negative 3. Therefore, this term just has to multiply out to be 10. So 5 over 4 times some number a is going to be 10. Multiplying both sides by 4 over 5, we have a equals 40 over 5. Therefore, a equals 8. Okay, moving on to number 50. The sides of a square are 5 centimeters long. One vertex of the square is at 4, 1 on a square coordinate grid marked in centimeter units. Which of the following points could also be a vertex of the square? Okay, so we know that possible vertices are going to be 5 units to the right, or 5 units to the left, or 5 units down, or 5 units up. So the set of possible vertices is going to be 9, 1, negative 1, 1, 4, 6, and 4, negative 4. So looking at these, 9, 1 is one of the vertices I said, so that looks like our answer. Because notice we have to add 5 to either the x or y, but not both. And we just got lucky that one of the vertices that I said just happened to be the very first answer. Moving on to 51. Okay. The list of numbers 18, 42, 23, x, y, 39, 14 has a median of 28. The mode of the list of the numbers is 39. To the nearest whole number, what is the mean of the list? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. Therefore, our median is going to be a single number. Remember, if you have an even number of numbers in your set, you're going to have to take the average of the two middle numbers to get the median. By the way, remembering our measures of central tendency, the median is the middle number when the numbers are organized from lowest to highest. The mode occurs most often, and the mean is the average of all the numbers. So let's put these numbers in ascending order. Okay, I excluded x and y from our list because we don't quite know where they go yet. Our median is going to be 28. Therefore, the middle number has to be 28. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. We know that the middle number is going to be in the fourth position. So we count 14, 18, 23, and then our median is going to be 28. So we know that 28 goes between 23 and 39 here. Now, the mode is going to be 39. Now, 39 is going to go right here. And we've just solved for both x and y. Remember, 39 has to be y, or x, whatever one you picked, because it has to appear twice. It has to be the most often. Now, in order to find the mean of the list, all we have to do is add all of these numbers together and then divide by the number of numbers, which is 7. So we're going to do 14 plus 18 plus 23 plus 28 plus 39 plus 39 plus 42 gives us a sum of 203 divided by 7 is a mean of 29. All right, looking at 52, a right circular cylinder is shown in the figure below with a diameter of 10 centimeters and a height of 30. What's the total surface area? Okay, I don't see a figure below, but who needs a figure when you got numbers? So we've got a diameter of 10, which means our radius is going to be 5 centimeters. And our height is 30. So all we have to do is plug that into our formula right here. But the one thing you should notice is when you type this into your calculator, you should not use an approximation of pi. You should not use 3.14 because you'll add on extra steps. Treat pi like a variable here. So we're going to have 2 pi r squared. R squared is 25. 2 times 25 is 50. So we have 50 pi plus 2 pi times r times h. R is 5, so 2 pi times 5 is 10. 10 times 30 is 300, plus 300 pi. And our answer is going to be 350 pi. C. I know I see that kind of in between both of them, but that's C. Okay, looking at 53. What rational number is halfway between 1/6 and 1/4? Remember, a rational number is a number that can be expressed as a ratio of two integers. So that's your whole numbers, that's your fractions, that's your decimals, pretty much everything except the irrationals, like our old friend pi over there is irrational. Now, when you see halfway, you should think average. So all we have to do is add 1/6 and 1/4 and divide by 2. So if you want to do this by hand, what you have to do is you have to get the fractions to a common denominator. So you could do, looks like you can multiply by 6 and 4, so you could do 4/24 plus 6/24 divided by 2. You also could have used 12 as a denominator, but this was the first one I thought of. So adding them together, you get 10/24 divided by 2. And this is 10/48. Dividing by 2, we have 5/24, which is C. Therefore, 53 is C. Okay, moving on to 54. 5x to the fifth, in parentheses, whole thing to the fifth is equivalent to. Okay, therefore we have to raise the 5 to the fifth and the x to the fifth to the fifth. So 5 to the fifth, we can type into our calculators if you don't know that off the top of your head. So we have 5 to the fifth is 3,125. Therefore, it's going to be either D or it's going to be E. Now we have to multiply 5 times 5 because that's the exponent rule when there's a parenthesis outside the exponents. So 5 times 5 is 25. Therefore, our answer is 3,125 times x to the 25th. Moving on to 55. An integer from 200 through 599 inclusive is to be chosen at random. What is the probability that the number chosen will have 0 as at least one digit? Ooh, this is an interesting problem. So we have to think about all of the integers from 200 to 599. So for the hundreds, where we have 2 zeros as our digits, we have these numbers. All right, we have 4 of those numbers. Now, we have numbers where we have 0 in the ones digit. And we can keep going like that. So for these, you are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them per 100. Since we have 200, 300, 400, and 500 here, we are going to have 36 of these numbers where we just have 0 in the ones digit. We're going to have 4 of these. Similarly, we're going to have 36 numbers where we have 0 in the tens digit per 100. Adding these together, we get 36 plus 36 plus 4 is about 76. And we have 400 numbers here, and we're going to have 76 divided by 400 as our answer. Moving on to 56. A parachuter is 120 meters above the ground and is falling at a constant rate of 8 meters per second, while a jetpacker is 50 meters above the ground and is rising at a constant rate of 12 meters per second. To the nearest tenth of a second, after how many seconds will the two people be at the same height above the ground? All right, let's draw a diagram here. That's our parachuter. Got 120 meters above the ground, and he's falling at 8 meters per second. And we got a jetpacker, 50 meters above the ground. He'll be a dot. And he's rising at 12 meters per second. Okay, these two people right here, they are 70 meters apart because he's 120 meters above the ground, he's 50. This space is going to be 70 meters. And they are approaching each other at 20 meters per second because he's coming down at 8 meters per second. This guy's going up at 12 meters per second, so they combine. So all we have to do is figure this out. Per second. How long does it take to traverse 70 meters if you're traveling at 70 meters per second? So we just have distance equals rate times time. So we have 70 equals 20 t. So all you have to do is divide 70 by 20 to solve for t. So we've got 70 divided by 20 is 3.5 seconds. And notice we've got that rounded to the 10th. So B is our answer for 56. The edges of a cube are each 4 plus x inches long. What is the surface area in square inches of this cube? All right, let's draw another diagram. All right, the edges are 4 plus x inches long. So the area of one of these squares is going to be side squared. Like that rectangular prism problem we came across a while ago, all we have to do is realize that this cube is composed of simple 2D shapes. In this case, the simple 2D shapes are squares, and there are 1, 2, back there, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. You can hold a cube in your hands to prove this for yourself, but there are 6 of these sides, and they each have an area of 4 plus x squared. So all we have to do is distribute this 4 plus x. Now we can multiply by 6 to get our answer, which is going to be 6x squared plus 48x plus 96. See how we're distributing that 6. Don't forget to distribute the 6 in that situation because there are 6 sides to that cube. Moving on to 58. A number is increased by 40%, and the resulting number is then decreased by 35%. The final number is what percent of the original number? All right, let's assign an original number. Let's take 100. Okay, 100 is increased by 40%. So 40% of 100 is 40. Adding that to 100, we get 140. Now we're going to decrease this by 35%. So we have to find 35% of 140. And we get 49. So 140 minus 49 is 91. Now all we have to do is figure out 91 divided by 100. That's going to be 0.91 or 91%. Therefore, C is our answer for 58. All right, looking at 59, we have a geometry problem. In the figure below, two non-adjacent sides of a regular pentagon are extended until they meet at point Y. What is the measure of angle Y? All right, the first thing we have to do is figure out the measure of each of the angles inside the pentagon. Now, to do this, we have to know the measure of the total degrees in a pentagon. Now, for this, it actually helps to realize that a pentagon is essentially just three triangles. Okay, since triangles have 180 degrees, which is a fact that we know, all we have to do is multiply 180 times 3 to get a sum of 540 degrees. We can divide 540 by 5 to get the measure of each of the angles in a pentagon. So 540 divided by 5 is going to come out to 108. Therefore, each of these angles has a measure of 108. Now, we have to figure out the measure of these two angles. To do that, we have to find the supplement of 108. Since these two angles are going to add up to 180 degrees, because this is a straight line here, what we have to do is we have to figure out what 180 minus 108 is. Now, 180 minus 108 is 72 degrees. Each of these angles on the triangle is going to be 72 degrees, because remember, this is a regular pentagon. Each of the angles has the same measure. Therefore, this angle and this angle are both 72 degrees. Therefore, we know that the sum of them is going to be 144. Thus, to figure out angle Y, all we have to figure out is 180 minus 144, and we get our answer of 36 degrees. And our final problem. What is the real value of log x in the equation? Log 2, 32 minus log 4, 16 equals log 6, x. Okay, so remembering what a log is, let's say we have an exponent like this. Converting this to logarithm, we would have Okay, so it might help us if we can convert these logarithms to exponents, essentially doing this, but in reverse. Okay, so we have to figure out what x is in these equations. So 2 to the x equals 32. Well, we know that 2 to the 2 is 4, 2 to the 3 is 8, 2 to the 4 is 16. Multiplying by 2 once more, we know that 2 to the 5 is 32. You could get that by just keep multiplying by 2 to see how many times you have to do it. Therefore, we know that x equals 5 in this case. Now here, 4 to the x equals 16. We know that 4 squared is 16, so we know that x equals 2. Therefore, the log base 2 of 32 is going to be 5. And the log base 4 of 16 is going to be 2. Thus, their difference is 3. So now we have 3 equals log base 6 of x. So 6 to the 3 equals x, converting this to the exponential form right here. Multiplying 6 times 6 times 6, or typing in 6 to the third, we get 216 as our final answer of the day.
And that's it for the end of the video. Hopefully you guys learned a lot of things and made a lot of improvements. I have nothing else to say. Just be sure to stay tuned for more videos coming up in the next few weeks, we're gonna get back to posting every week. I apologize for the break, but if you have any video ideas, let us know. Me and Nick will be working to provide the best videos possible. See ya.